Hello, and welcome to another episode of Unconventional Engineering. I'm Tom Costabile. You know, we've done quite a lot of these shows, and what I'm amazed at is the fact that there are so many stories yet to tell. So many topics. So today, I'm joined by my colleague and fellow board member, Patrick Vieth. Patrick is a seasoned leader in the pipeline industry with over 3 decades of experience, but he's also a strong advocate for collaborative pipeline research and safety, contributing to the development of early risk assessments. He's played a crucial role in responding to pipeline incidents, has led technical initiatives, including the advancements of inline inspection technologies. His leadership extends to various industry committees and organizations, including the ASME B31.4 committee. He's also, as I mentioned, an ASME board member and is heavily involved in fundraising for the ASME Foundation. Patrick is committed to fostering the next generation of pipeline professionals. Thank you for joining me today, Patrick, for what I expect to be a robust conversation with Dr. Phil Hopkins.
Thank you, Tom. Glad to be here.
Appreciate it. And I know you and Phil go back a long ways, but by way of introduction, Phil is an established consultant in the pipeline industry with over 40 years of experience, as well as a respected technical expert in pipeline integrity management. His core focus has been to highlight the need for learning, assessment, and competency establishment. Phil, welcome to the show as well.
Thanks, Tom. That 40 years sounds a big number, but I'm glad to be here.
That's good. That's good, Phil. You know, it is a big number. So, Phil, in light of your vast experience, why don't you start out by sharing with our audience, who are your top 3 influences?
Top 3 influences.
Well, I come before the internet influencers and the TikToks. I'll go back a long time to the days of black and white TV. And I remember at school being quite inspired by a physics teacher called Mr. Stevens. And he was the first guy, looking back, who inspired me by his clarity, his enthusiasm, and also the interesting things he taught me. And, you know, strange things, Tom, the influences you have in your life, you don't really realize that they were influencers until later in your life. So I never got the chance to say thank you to Mr. Stevens, but I'm sure he's not here now, but thank you, Mr. Stevens. The second one, the most important one, is easy. I was very lucky to do research at university, and my supervisor, Dr. Graham Jolly, who tolerated me for many years, and I admire his toleration. He was an inspiration to me. He was hardworking, he was caring, he was interesting, he was clever, he was funny, and he really gave me that balance between working hard and playing hard. And looking back, definitely that particular supervisor was inspirational to me. And fortunately, a couple of years ago, I had the chance to talk to him and tell him, and he was quite emotional about it, but I meant every word. He mattered to me. I think my children and grandchildren are a constant influence. They keep my feet constantly on the ground and give me an insight into the future, and that's very valuable. I recall one of my granddaughters, when she was 4, asking for some chocolate immediately before lunch. And I reminded her that, no, you can't have the chocolate, and lunch is soon. To which she replied, well, fun is now, not later. And I remember thinking, you know, she's right. She is right. And that could be the message for life. And she got both the chocolate and her lunch and enjoyed both. So there's your 3, Tom.
Well, Phil, thank you for that. Patrick, any thoughts from your side?
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, a couple things. Phil is truly one of my inspirations, even though we work across the pond from each other, that really seeing what he has done as a strong advocate for competency development. He spent his whole career really trying to teach and have the next generation really learn a lot of the valuable tools that are needed. And like Phil, I think, you know, relying on my family, my father and his direction, and parents and my wife and family, it really is a grounding part of how we are able to be successful in our professional careers. So really think those 2 things are what has helped me get to where I am today.
Well, I would agree with both of you. Family is definitely one of the influences for all of us. And I look at some of the great individuals that I had the opportunity to work with. And as Phil mentioned, unfortunately, they passed on by now and didn't realize it until they passed on of how much of an influence they were. But so let's begin a conversation with our Innovation Station segment.
Innovation Station.
So, Phil, regarding the future of engineering, I can honestly say that no matter where I go, the topic of artificial intelligence comes up. And it sparks some very interesting discussions. From both your perspectives, what role do you feel AI will play in the industry? And I put a spin on this one to say from educational curriculum to institutional implementation.
Yeah, AI is exciting, isn't it? I always think that engineering is a big sandpit, a big playground for engineers, and they've just thrown another toy called AI, and it's just getting better and better. I think AI is everywhere now. It's here now. For example, Google Maps, I think, uses it to optimize the best directions. And you just go to every customer service website and you've got a clever chatbot, which is a software robot, helping you. So it's here now. And as AI technology encompasses various techniques that enables machines to simulate human-like intelligence, it's obviously important for engineers, very important. But we have to be careful. I read a recent report that said that 80% of AI projects fail or just fail to get off the ground because, like IT system failures, we know it's very difficult to translate that technology into economic success. So we have to be very careful, I think. But to me, the mistake we're making with AI is not being clear about the objectives. Because if you haven't got a clear objective, it's going to struggle to satisfy no objective. So I think if you're like UPS, the delivery system, they save something like $350 million per year by optimizing van drivers' routes. If you've got a clear objective, wow, that's fantastic. In terms of learning and education, it's a very relevant question because COVID brought about many changes in education, particularly distance learning, internet learning, and AI really does boost that learning. But the first thing we have to do in education and learning is understand AI. That's both teachers and learners, and then they can benefit from AI. For example, we're going to use huge amounts of data. But of course, as a teacher, I know the data we're using is biased because it's built up by humans and we're all biased. So the first thing we have to do is understand that the current version of AI looks at data, picks up trends, picks up patterns, but we must be sure about the data. And also, the current AI can look at the same data and give a different answer because it's generated intelligence. So the first answer may not be right. So understand AI and wow, it can take so many tedious tasks away from the teacher, like marking, like syllabus, like simple admin tasks, and free you up for the more fun of teaching that is dealing with the student. So that's fantastic. But AI will have a big role in making our learning more engaging because it'll be more focused on the outcomes. Because the great thing about education is we've got so much information now that we can spend all day learning. However, we haven't got all day. But AI can focus on the real parts of learning that we need. And also, it can pick up on the individual. It can say to the individual, well, you're good at this, you're good at that. I've looked at your exam results. And I will give you education at your rate, at your performance level, which is quite exciting. So I envision in future that every student will have his or her own AI bot guiding them through education, even through life. And all the time feeding back to you, well, you're not very good at this, not very good at that. And that is because learning is a lifelong occupation. And if I have a friendly AI assistant to guide me, that's very, very helpful. So all I can see is just a very exciting future for AI in education and learning. I was recently involved in a testing program of AI versus humans. I think Patrick was also involved, where a group of 30 students took a multi-choice exam of 40 questions, and we also gave the exam to an AI bot. The AI bot didn't do as good as the humans, but the bot was only 7% behind, which means basic information in engineering can be handled by an AI bot, which has got great implications to staffing levels, but also takes the tedium out of a lot of work. So, in summary, Tom, very exciting, and I can't see a problem at present.
You know, Phil, it's interesting. I just recently saw a piece of AI that one of our member companies is developing in terms of inspection of longitudinal wells and the ability for the tool to research and review 6 million data points in less than 2 minutes. It's an amazing, amazing concept where, as you know from your experience, and Patrick, please add into this, in my day, 40 some years ago, that would take 8, 10 engineers about a week to evaluate and then go back and figure out what do we have to do. So it's amazing.
Yeah, I do believe that's really the trend that we're seeing. And to build on what Phil said is that if we really understand the objectives and the guardrails and the guidance that we have to utilize AI, it really frees up the time to focus on other parts of problem solving. That is, leaving some of the mundane efforts to AI. I think in order for it to be successful, that we also need to take a look at the security of the information. Everyone that I speak to is concerned with knowledge and information that is relied upon, and how you really protect your intellectual property within an organization, and how that is appropriately leveraged.
It's an exciting time, Tom. I mean, for new engineers to the industry, it's exciting because when I started, computers were relatively new and there was no software and no AI and no data. But now we've got fantastic data, AI, fantastic software, big computers. Wow, the tools we have now are very, very exciting.
That's great. You know, we're just on the edge of a bunch of breakthroughs at ASME with how do we improve our functionality with AI. The first one we're out with is on our financial package. And I'm anxious to see where we can use the tool. And more importantly, I believe developing standards on the ethical use of AI as we go forward. That's going to be critical. So we're kind of been touching around the topic that I'd like to have you share your thoughts about, and that's conformity assessment. So at ASME, as you know, we're compelled to ensure that our standards and certifications are implemented properly. So Phil, Patrick, where do you stand on conformity assessment? And I think I know the answer for this, but I'll ask it anyway. And its importance both now and for the future.
Well, I think you can look at conformity assessments on two levels. You can look at it on the individual level, that boils down to competence, and on the industrial level, it boils down to mainly management systems. But I think in terms of the industry, we rely on organisations like ASME to give us guidance on standards and recommendations and guidelines. And we have done since, I think, 1887. It's been a long time, and it's very welcome. And at present, we have to manage our assets, asset management, and our assets are pipelines, and we've got to have engineers who are competent to manage that asset, and both have to conform. They have to conform as an engineer and conform as an asset. Historically, the industry relied on pipeline maintenance and inspection to ensure a pipeline asset was safe. And that was a bias towards the probability that it didn't fail. Well, now, of course, we have systems in place that look at the probability and consequences of the failure. And we use risk analysis to ensure both probability and consequence are covered. And we put that all into a great mix of the old plan, do, check, act cycle, and it works very well. And hopefully we're getting towards zero failures. But all that is carried out by engineers, competent engineers. And we've got to make sure that these people are competent and certain at what they do. Now, of course, we can't all be perfectly certain, and all standards cannot be perfectly certain. Uncertainty is incomplete knowledge, and that has to be managed. And what we don't want to be is ignorant, because that's lack of awareness. So, using these integrity management systems in our industry, using competent engineers is really, really good. And the risk analysis we use, again, helps us look into the future, look at future consequences, and that helps us as well. But the key is the input to that are competent engineers. So all conformity relies on engineers. So I'm really interested in how to ensure that the engineers who are doing these conformity assessments are competent.
And really is some background, the competency side of it is what Phil has really been pushing here in the last several decades. And maybe to stage set, that competence is really a measure of the skill, the knowledge, the experience, and the behavior. So while we have a lot of standards and practices available to engineers, how do we ensure that they are being used appropriately by the engineers that are putting them to use?
For the benefit of the audience, why don't you chat a little bit about the QPPI, or I should say qualification panel for pipeline industry. It's an amazing offshoot and a consolidation of a bunch of brilliant individuals.
Well, Patrick is the chair of the QPPI, but just to give a quick summary before Patrick comes in, the QPPI is an independent organisation that works in competencies. When you talk about a job or a task, the QPPI focuses on providing its competency needs. And it's a panel set up to help individuals gain these competencies. So the QPPI, under Patrick's leadership, can offer learning programs that individuals take to achieve these competencies. And what's particularly good about the QPPI is that they are able to award certification and accreditation by the American National Standards Institute for the competences that are produced, which means that any qualification obtained through a QPPI has great credibility and portability throughout the industry.
Yeah, for sure. Yes. Thanks, Phil. His background, Phil has really developed the foundation for QPPI, and our panel is really setting the standards and the certification processes and procedures through a separate path that is ANAB accredited. That is, the certification process is really separated from our goal of basically setting these standards. So that's part of the process. I do believe that QPPI is really at an inflection point. Phil and the team have done a great job at setting the foundation. And what we're really looking at now is how to launch this so that it's relied upon by more people in the industry. That is, how do organization or young professionals leverage QPPI to get their competency and certification through that process to demonstrate that they have the skills that are needed to basically do their job?
Yeah, it is. And again, the part that I've been pleased with and I've been watching from a distance is the independence of the panel, and yet the composure of the panel, which you look at the experts that are there providing that for, how can I say it easily, the good of the order. And it works. It's that part of collaboration, that part of coming together without a pony in the race makes a big difference. And if you just look at the number of simple pipeline systems that are following the criteria, it's truly amazing.
It's a strong panel, and really it's a panel made up of people, senior engineers who really believe competence matters. Because I do feel quite sad about the ability of our younger engineers to learn. They're very busy, they're hardworking, and sometimes they're not given the opportunities to learn. So we have to really focus learning to give them the chance to quickly pick up competencies. So the QPPI is a key role, has a key role in doing that. And also, I'm sure you're the same, Tom, that the older you get, you feel to be more incompetent. You think, well, I don't know that. So competence is lifelong learning. And it's important that people of all ages seek out these competencies, because the key thing about competency is that we know that in many industries, human error is the cause of 80% of accidents or incidents. I was reading recently that 250,000 Americans die each year from treatment-related mistakes, medical error, and it is now the third leading cause of death in the United States. So competence in all industries is very, very important. And that's why I think we should all be interested. You know, it's easy in some professions to know somebody's competence. So, for example, a professional basketball player is competent when you see him or her playing and scoring against peers. But would I know that if I was only interviewing him or her? Very, very difficult. And also, it's important to organisations like ASME because our standards in ASME stipulate you must be competent and qualified to use this standard. But I don't feel as though we're helping people by clearly defining it. And so the QPPI defines it and specifies it. So hopefully we're helping the ASMEs of the world in contributing to their standards. But certainly I think it's needed. And it's also a fact that sadly most of us feel we're more competent than we are. I'm quite the opposite. I keep feeling I'm more incompetent. But I'm reminded of the survey from 1981. Was it when 93% of automobile drivers thought they were above average? And statistically, that's not very clever. And even more worrying when you look at people's competence. There was another survey in the USA in 2021, which asked, how confident are you that you could beat a bear in a fight with your bare hands? That's a pretty good question. We're not talking about a cuddly teddy bear. We're talking about a 9-foot tall, 1,000-pound grizzly bear, okay? And amazingly, out of 1,700 people, 6% of respondents reckoned they could beat the bear. So there's a lot of feelings here about competence that don't really match. Just as a footnote, to make matters worse, the same survey asked a question about a crocodile, and more people thought they could beat the crocodile. So we do feel as though we're more competent than we are. So perhaps the QPPI has a role to educate these bear fighters and crocodile fighters.
That's a great analogy, Phil. It seems to me that the groundwork that we'll lay today will pay big dividends in the future. And whether we're determining how to mitigate changes in industry or when we're thinking about setting competency standards. And the key component that we've all talked about, and you've mentioned it several times, both Phil and Patrick, education. I firmly believe that education will be a key component to this type of evolution that we're speaking about. So whether it's beating the bear or beating the crocodile, or just simply how do we continue to learn and add more tools to our toolkit. So it also happens to be a major goal for our ASME Foundation. I know, Patrick, you were very instrumental earlier this year, and perhaps you can tell our audience about the genius of the latest foundation scholarship that bears Phil's name.
So Phil has done an incredible amount of work of learning and competency development throughout the industry. And in recognition for the great work that he has done, a scholarship was set up through the ASME Foundation to recognize Phil and the great work that he has done and affected so many across the industry. The scholarship will live in perpetuity. It will provide scholarship to the underrepresented and those that really have the desire to learn and grow through their studies. So I want to recognize Phil for that award. Congratulations on that, and really the fact that Herman Rosen put in that scholarship in your name, I think, was really recognition for the great things that you have done. Thank you, Phil.
Well, thank you, Patrick. It was a very generous donation, and I'm really excited to the future of people using it. I think, as you mentioned before, Patrick, that competence is a mix of skills, knowledge, and experience. Well, we obtain competence by a mixture of experience, mentoring, and training. and experience on the job, mentoring by peers, and training. That could be courses, that could be classroom courses or internet courses. So 10%, that's a lot. That's 1 day per fortnight. So training and learning is a big part of our life as we go through our career. And I hope the scholarship can start off people, and then they can continue learning throughout their life. I'm very flattered by it.
Well, Phil, again, congratulations. I'm very pleased for you, and importantly, the ability for young engineers coming up, getting a scholarship and then carrying on the work that you've laid the groundwork for over 40 years. It's truly a tradition, and I'm pleased to be a small part of it. So congratulations, and Patrick, thank you again for your leadership in making this happen. I want to thank both of you for being here today, and also want to thank you for all the work that you continue to do. I know, Phil, that you tried to retire a couple of times, but I know Patrick's trying to do the same thing. But knowing you guys, it's not going to happen. So it's just another day in the office, a different thing, a different theme. And for those of you out in our audience, if you'd like to learn more about these programs or learn more about the Dr. Phil Hopkins Scholarship, please visit the ASME Foundation.org website, or about ASME General, please visit our website at asme.org. Dr. Phil Hopkins, thank you, sir. Patrick Vieth, thank you. I very much enjoyed this, and we'll do it again. For now, I'm Tom Costabile at ASME. Again, asme.org or asmefoundation.org, and enjoy the rest of your day.